So what I'm going to do today is we're going to go over some sell items mode stuff. I'm going to show you how to customize the item window layout, adding an item from scratch, from the site catalog, adding items, duplicating items, setting up duplication options, item templates, so saving items as using an item template in that regard, setting up a default item template, and just templates all around. So we're going to start with the item window layout. So basically I have pretty much a test database set up here. This is my account for selling on eBay, so I sell beard products, oils, brushes, balms, and then I also have some personal stuff I sell, DVDs, games, stuff like that. So I got some real-world examples of using SixBit. So let's get started. Alright, so we're going to open an item, and I'm just pretty much going to go over the item window layout in general and how that works. Entering information in SixBit can be time intensive, especially when it comes with getting all the data in there that's pretty much filled out for you to list the item. So we've tried to make sure this process is as customizable as possible and as efficient as possible. There's a lot of fields on the item window that not every user is going to use or uses, and it's been designed to allow for users to hide certain tabs or move them around. So everything at the top of this window is able to be moved around just on the top. You can't move anything from the top below, and vice versa. You can't move any of these fields from down here to up top. Basically, if you had Amazon, eBay, and Etsy, you would see each corresponding tab to the site here. I'm just on eBay right now. So all this is eBay relevant information to the item, and then up here is more of your inventory, your product ID, SKU, identifier stuff, pretty self-explanatory. But it's really been broken down into two areas. Like I was saying, the top contains all the item information that's common to all the sites, and the bottom contains information that's site-specific. Pretty much as clear and cut as I can explain it. And each area is made up of different panes that are either shown alone or docked with other panes. So you can actually, if you work with item specifics a lot, you can take the item specifics tab and you can put it in its own place so it's by itself, or you can have it docked alongside another tab in its own window. Let me just cancel that and reopen it. But the panes that aren't used can be docked behind more frequently used panes. So like if you don't use a description wrapper, or if you don't mess with your options, having themes, applying a theme to an item before you list it is basically docked behind the title and description, so that when you come into this item window, you can pretty much see all the relevant information up front. Okay. So likewise with categories, store category, most people use categories. You can actually click, hold down, and drag, and you see these arrows here, and this basically allows you to place it different parts of the window. Just disregard these black lines here. This is actually because I'm running out of code, so it's a visual thing. I can probably disable that. But you can dock it here. So if you want to see your eBay category side by side to your store category, you can put them right next to each other, and this allows you to pretty much organize your items, organize the items data is how you see fit and how you want to use it. So that's pretty much the item window and its tabs. Whatever changes you make to the item window and the tabs can just be saved up here, so you can save as default. If you do something and you want to undo it, before you save it, you can just cancel out of the item window. That will get rid of all the changes that you did to the tabs. But if you make changes and you want them, you just want to save it as default, and that's going to save your layout. And if you do something where you want to reset it back, you can always reset it to factory layout, and that's pretty much stock. So it's the item window, how it looks when it comes packaged with 6-bit by default. Let me see if there's anything else I missed here. Looks like it's it for the item window layout. It's pretty straightforward. Like I said, everything can be moved around, and you can organize the item window however you want. All right, so let's save and exit this, and let's start with adding an item. So we're going to add an item from scratch. You can click that little blue plus or click the drop down and just say create new item. At that point, your item window is going to pop up, and if you don't have a default item template chosen, which we'll get to in a few minutes here, it's just going to be a blank slate. So you're going to go through and define all your information, from scratch, your weight, any identifiers, if you're using a product ID, if you're going to use the catalog to search, you can type in DVD and do a search with preview, and you can go through the eBay catalog or Amazon or Etsy if you have it, and you can select your product from here, and it'll pull in all the information. So yeah, as soon as you're done from this point creating manual item, we'll just fill out some test data. I will put in, I sell a lot of beard oil, so I'll put something in like that, give it a description. I use a wrapper, allocation plan. You can give it some pricing, and then as soon as you set your category, which I should have some history here. Alright, let's go back. There we go. Here's the eBay category. And I'll give it a new condition. I don't sell anything that's used, all brand new products. I'll set my shipping, payment preset, shipping preset. And then from that point, once you have your category selected, your item specifics will populate, because that's always based on category from eBay. Fill in the brand. Don't think I use any features. And no age group. All hair types. And this one is made from argan oil. Let's say I got 5. Set my supplier, so you could set your inventory a couple different ways. You can use these add remove buttons, or you could physically go into the manage inventory window, and this is going to bring up your purchase history, and you can set it here. You can add stock from this button here, which basically brings up the edit purchase. So if you have 5 more, you can give it your supplier name, okay it, so I'm going to have 10 total, and boom. And you can put in your cost, the date you received it, all that fun stuff. Notes, just put in a test. So for me, we have a feature in 6-bit. I don't want to go into too much detail, but it's pretty much custom fields. Any kind of data that you want to put on your items for your own use. I actually made a couple here. One is item class, so I can select what kind of item it is. It's oil, a balm, a pomade. I sort of have them categorized for my own use, so I can do searches and bring items up in 6-bit if I'm looking for something specific really quickly. And then I also have my product line thing, Grade Before Shave, which is all my beard products, and I have a personal collection, which is the DVD stuff. So I usually just set those in there. You can do some pretty cool stuff with custom fields. After you save and exit, item should be up at the top here. Beard oil new. And the custom fields are actually in the grid after you create them. So if we scroll over, you see I have the product line and I have my item class. And you can move these around in the grid for your own use, but if you drag them up, you can actually group. So I have them grouped into my product line and item class. So here's all my grade before shave and all my personal DVD, personal collection of, oops. Let's ungroup this grid here. So that was pretty much adding an item manually. Everything has to be filled out from scratch, and then once you save, once your pictures are added and you save the item, you can then either submit it to eBay or you can do a quick check on it from the item window. We have a check item button here. Basically reaches out to eBay and make sure that there's nothing wrong with it. See, I'm missing a package weight here and I need to add a photo. So it's pretty useful, especially if you're adding items manually, so you can go in and check to make sure what you have filled out is going to get accepted by eBay right from the item window. And yep, that's pretty much adding an item from scratch. Let's look at adding an item or items from a site catalog. So I have some examples here. So basically, many commercial items are identified with UPCs. I mean, as a seller, you probably know what I'm talking about. Any item with a barcode that's scanned in a store is most likely using a UPC. Books use ISBNs, etc., etc. Amazon, they have an ASIN number, which is Amazon Standard Identification Number, I believe. And collectively, these fields are known as product IDs or product identifiers. And a lot of the sites, such as eBay, actually store them as cataloged items. So if you're looking for something specific and you want to look through, the eBay catalog for something, it's probably there. 9 times out of 10, you don't even have to create an item manually, depending on what you sell. So that will bring us into adding multiple items from the catalog. So you would go up here to add item, click that drop down, and you'll see the catalog items button. Once you click that, you're going to get the add multiple catalog items window. And there's a few things going on in here. So one, you can actually set an item template. So I'll explain more about what item templates are in a minute, but basically it's pre-filled out information on an item. So if in my case, I create a lot of beard balms and a lot of beard oil items to submit. So I have pre-filled out information for both of these types of items in my database. So basically what this would do is anything that comes in from the eBay catalog that isn't defined and you set an item template, all that other information is going to get set from the template. So if I'm going out to eBay and looking for a description and it's not in the cataloged item and I have it in my template, it's going to be there once it's imported into SixBit. So I'm just going to, I'm going to add some UPCs here just as a test. Use stock photo and use stock photo as gallery. These options are for when the item gets imported from the catalog into SixBit. It's going to pull in that stock photo, and after that comes in and the item is created in SixBit, you'll see the photo on the item, and then when you submit it, it's going to use that stock photo for your listing itself. You can add more photos onto that, but this is just to have that initial stock photo set. And I believe these are 3 UPCs for some DVDs, and then lastly, actually not lastly, this create SixBit item for products not found in catalog. What that's going to do is any UPCs that aren't found in the eBay catalog are just going to get created as an item in SixBit, and you can go back through, and at that point the item is in SixBit imported, but it just doesn't have any catalog data filled in on the item itself. So you would check that if you have a list of UPCs, that you don't know 100% for sure are on the eBay catalog or Amazon catalog, and they'll just get created along with everything else. And the fetch button here, this is for if you have a file like a CSV or an XML file with all your product identifiers in that file. You can actually just point to it. This fetch is going to open up a browse window in Windows Explorer, and you can browse out to wherever you have your file stored with all those UPCs, and it's going to bring them into this window. And then at that point, once you click OK, it's going to reach out, and we should see these items get created in the program. Boom. Yep. Okay, so one of them was Spider-Man, DVD, Little Mermaid, and Jumanji. Big Little Mermaid fan here. So you can just pretty much open that, and you will see all your product identifier data here in this item specifics window. Oh yeah, I was going to say, if you guys have questions, we're going to have a Q&A pod after I'm done with the item, creating item stuff I want to go over first, and then we can address more specific questions. We'll have two support reps here with me, JC and Dustin, answering any questions after I'm finished with this, just in case you guys were wondering. Okay, so yeah, after you import and put those UPCs in, it's going to create the items. It's going to bring in all the relevant item information here, stock photo. You can see all the catalog details here in this window. And looks a little ugly, but that's pretty much the gist of it. And with eBay's new REST API, we're going to be making some catalog changes in 6-bit as well. So we're going to have to do some updates with all the ePID eBay product identifier stuff, so that's coming down the pipe. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else. The stock photo gets added into its own tab after you import it. Description you have to fill out yourself, pricing, all that information. But yeah, that is pretty much how the catalog, the site catalog, works. I mean, importing catalog items in bulk is in this way is pretty fast, pretty efficient if you're just trying to create a bunch of items at once that you sell, and then by specifying the product ID and identifying the item template, if you use one, 6-bit will retrieve the catalog information from the e-commerce site itself, eBay or Amazon, and create these new item records in seconds. So it happens pretty fast. So yeah, these are the catalog items we just created. And then from this point you can submit if they're ready to go, or you can go in and edit them and finish updating your products there. Let's see. Alright, we created an item manually, catalog items. Let's go into item templates. Just pull up the Manage Item Templates window so you can actually get to that. Let me slow down so you can see. If you click this drop down under Add, here's where the item templates that I have or that you already have defined will show up, and then you can click Manage. So I got my beard oil template and my beard balm template. We'll start out with making, actually we'll just edit one of these so I can briefly explain. So if it's a template, you'll see running across the backdrop of the item window, it'll say template, so you know that you're actually working with your item template in this window. Move this. Alright, so there's some predefined information that I've already filled out on this template. I've given it just a beard oil template name. Haven't put any pictures in. I've set the wrapper, so I have a description wrapper that I use for all my items. That's set. You can basically use this, fill out any kind of relevant information that you want. It's a beard oil template, so I've already given it my product line and my custom field item class because it's an oil. I've identified the weight in ounces, my dimensions. I've also defined the item repository. There's a folder I have called oils. So any new item that I create based off of this template is going to go straight to the oils folder after I'm done creating it. You can define inventory. I mean, anything on the actual item window that you want in your template you can predefine. I've given it a category. Haven't filled out all the item specifics, but you can see the brand there. The shipping and payment is all set. And then from this point, if you know exactly what kind of beard oil or what kind of product you're selling, after you edit the template, just say template, just cancel this. So once your template is defined and ready to be used, you just drop down, click the beard oil template. It's going to create a new item. I'm going to give it the beard oil, let's give it a name, Gentleman's Blend. I would have set the pictures. I'm not sure what kind of pictures. I'll just give it a couple birds. Set the pictures on it. Give it a description. Everything else is pretty much filled out other than type. I know it's an argan oil. If you have a store category, you can define that. And then at this point, save. Do a check item, see if there's anything else I would need on here. Alright, I would need a price, and then that shouldn't even be popping up. $15. Save it. Let's do another check. Still whining about the photos. Let me try to save and exit. So at that point, once the photos are added and they're good, you save and exit, and then you have your new item here. And you can just keep doing that for items going forward. That picture error is still bothering me. I don't know why. Huh. I don't know. Anyways, you shouldn't have a problem when you add a picture and submit it to eBay. I just don't think it likes, I don't think SixBit likes these bird pictures here for some reason. But yeah, that's the item template itself. And then after you create the item template, you can add a new item quickly at any time from the created item templates, like I showed you here. It's just an easy way to fill in predefined information for new items going forward. And what else did I miss? The default item template. So if I set this item, if I set the beard balm template that I have set up as a default, what happens is a new item that I create from scratch is automatically going to use the data in this template for new items going forward. So, I mean, I have some placeholders in there just for the beard balm stuff, but if I do a new item, it's going to use everything, should use everything that I have defined. Let's see if I have this beard balm filled out. Okay. Beard balm. Technical difficulties. Hold on, let me try one more thing. I'm going to set this one instead, see if that works. So the item template, okay, for some reason that other item template that I have information isn't getting pulled in from that. So essentially what's supposed to happen is when you have your item template set as a default and you create a new item manually, it's going to use the information from that template. Short and sweet is pretty much what it does. And if you don't want to do that, just make sure you come in here and then clear your defaults, so you're starting with a blank slate when you create a new item going forward. But yeah, that's pretty much item templates. Duplicating items is another area we can talk about real quick. So there's a couple ways you can duplicate an item. If you wanted to make a duplicate of this DVD, for example, you can just click it and then hit duplicate, and it's going to create that item. Open it up so you can edit the item, and then quickly, quickly submit it in that way. You can also set up your custom duplication. Duplication, works for some people. A lot of times it's easier just to set up an item template with your predefined instead of just constantly duplicating. But it's sort of the same thing. You can create items easily using the arrow under duplicate, or just hitting add item template. You can also set up custom duplication. So after you duplicate an item, you can select which fields from that item that you're duplicating get carried over into the new one. So if you want your quantity, any storage location, site, these fields here are pretty straightforward. If you have them defined on one item and you want them used on the other one, you could just check or uncheck them. Don't want them used. Most people that I've seen using this would just do something like quantity or cost, maybe supplier. SKU really isn't relevant unless your SKU has to be unique. So a lot of times if you're updating the item, you would just clear out the SKU. But yeah, and then there's two options down here. You can edit the new item after you duplicate it immediately. So with this checked, the item window is going to pop open after you duplicate an item real quick. And then there's another option here. Go to items in separate view after duplicating. What that's going to do is it's going to move your view tab. You're going to be in the views tab, and you're going to have a focus on just that single item in its own view. So it's just a different way to actually editing the item after you duplicate it. Something users were asking about. Okay, let's see if I missed anything with duplication. I don't think so. The quick duplication is pretty much just like clicking duplicate. I'm pretty sure it still uses the information from that item you're duplicating the same. Let's try to click quick here. Yeah, so it's the same thing. It's going to use the same information, set all your fields that you want carried over during that duplication process. Alright, so we talked about manually creating an item, adding items from a catalog, item templates, duplicating items. That's really items in 6-bit for the most part, creating manually. You can also bring items through a CSV flat file. I'm not going to get into that today. You can really get creative and complex with importing and creating items, especially variations. You start talking variation items and using CSVs. I could be talking for days on this. There's just so many ways to do it, and so many different fields that you can define on your items. It'd be a webinar all dedicated to just importing from a CSV or a flat file. So, all right, let's move over to the Q&A. All right, so if you guys have any specific questions here, let me clear these. If you guys have any more specific questions or would like to see something in 6-bit, I can show you. You'll see the Q&A pad here on your right. You can just pop into there, ask a question or whatever you want, and we can go through anything you guys might be wondering. Okay, Got Dan asks, is there an easy way to crop photos based on set aspect ratios? Good question. I don't believe that is something in our picture editor. I'm going to open up an item here just to see. Picture editor. I'm going to share my monitor here. So I know you can crop here. This is the picture editor. If I choose crop, so there's round corners. These are the macros. This is just the view. I don't actually think there is a way to do that. At least with our picture editor currently. Something that might be possible, but you would have to, in the meantime, you'd probably have to use a picture, you know, like Photoshop or any other picture editor in a scenario like that. Alright, let's go back, see what other questions we got here coming in. Alright, item allocation. Cheryl asked item allocation. Is there anything specific you want to know about allocation, Cheryl? I can just sort of give you a brief overview on, you know, allocation plans and how to set them in the program. Let me pull up. So I use allocation plans here. I mean, basically an allocation plan is a rule that you can apply to items. Oh, okay. JC saying hold shift and drag on the crop will let you maintain the aspect ratio. So that might be, sorry, just cut you off there, Cheryl. I want to go back to Dan's question real quick about the cropping. Oh yeah. Yeah, so you can, if you hold shift, what JC was saying, if you hold shift, so without holding shift, you can move it left and right, and then if you hold shift down as you're dragging, it's going to maintain that size there. So if you're trying to get a certain block, it'll maintain the aspect ratio for you. So yeah, holding shift seems to work. All right, item allocation. Yeah, so she also asked, will it automatically relist immediately? So what I was saying is you can pretty much define your allocation plan as a set of rules. Let me ask. I apologize. All right, there we go. I got JC in here to answer tackle some of these questions that I can't get to. Dustin and JC are in here answering some. So yeah, back to the allocations. Okay, so it's a set of rules that you can apply to an item to determine what type of automatic relisting or even inventory adjustments are going to be performed for that item on the site. So for this example, you can see I have keep all inventory listed as fixed price. If you click the pencil, you can actually edit some of the other fields. This is saying relist and revise the fixed price listing, and it's going to keep all my uncommitted inventory running. So these two items that I have here available, when I list this item with the allocation plan set, it's going to keep those two items running. And there's also some other options here that we just added. One of them is end listings when out of stock. So if you have out of stock enabled, and you have that end listings when out of stock checked, it's going to, instead of moving the listing to out of stock, it's going to end it. Some people don't want all their items moving to out of stock when they run out, and it's just one of those features that we recently put in that a lot of users were asking about, so they can actually end the listing. You can also decrement the price, so you can decrement it by a fixed amount or a percentage after it ends without a sale, or when it's relisting without a sale, it'll decrement. And you can apply this to auctions or fixed price for the relisting. And then quantity held in reserve is another one that we just added that basically allows you to keep a quantity of your inventory for the item left in stock. So if you have 20 and you want to make sure that you have 10 left, you can just put 10 in here, and it's gonna end that after your 11th one sells, and it's gonna leave that quantity of 10 held in reserve for you. Okay, so that's pretty much all the fields that you can define for keep all inventory listed as fixed price. You have some other ones. You can have keep one item listed as a fixed price. All these will allow you to edit too, so you can edit each allocation plan as you want. You can split your inventory between sites, and then you can have the one to keep an auction always listed. And then, so what happens is, in this scenario, if I have that set and I list it, 2 of them sell, the allocation plan goes out to the listing and it ends it automatically, or moves it to out of stock, however you have your eBay store set up. Okay. Does that answer your question, Cheryl? Will the allocation plan work when the store is on vacation? Good question. I think when you put your store in vacation mode, doesn't it just allow your listings to not be, it keeps them running, but it keeps them in some kind of status where they're not able to be bought? Isn't that how vacation works? Sorry, you that was a good question. I'm pretty sure eBay vacation, let me actually reach out and look that one up real quick. I haven't really dealt with a lot of eBay vacation stuff. Yeah, so one of the things it does that I'm reading is it hides and blocks purchases from fixed price listings. So I think once you're in vacation mode, everything's pretty much limbo. So the allocation plan is still going to be set. Nothing actually happens with the running listing, as far as the running status on eBay. So I think you'd still be good if you had a hypothetically, if you had a listing on eBay with an allocation plan defined in SixBit, and it's running on eBay, and you put it in vacation mode. When you come back and turn off vacation mode, everything should still run, and the allocation should still fire off if it sells normally. I don't think there's any problem there with that. Okay, Cheryl. All right, let's go to Gary. ASIN still need to list on Amazon, or is it still in the works? He's talking about the ASIN, Amazon's identification number. So we have, I can't really show too much just because I don't have Amazon enabled, but if I had the Amazon tab here, we have a field for creating an ASIN, which is, it brings up the Amazon ASIN creation window and populates fields based on the Amazon category. So you would have to define all of your Amazon information first, and then you can submit it to Amazon. But you don't need an ASIN. If it already has an ASIN on Amazon, you can I'm pretty sure all you have to do is supply that in the Amazon field, and then you can submit it with that ASIN, and it should go up fine. That was Gary's question there about Amazon ASINs. Jenny, can you run through creating a custom field? Sure. Let's cancel out of there. So like I was saying earlier, I use a couple different custom fields. I don't get too complex. I'm not a huge seller, so I mean, for what I use them for is pretty basic. But if you're just starting out and you haven't created a custom field yet, you would go up to your File button or the Application menu and click that, Manage, hover over Manage, and then if you scroll down in here, you'll see a Custom Fields option, information specific to your business. Open that up and you'll get hit with the Manage Custom Fields window. Excuse me. From here, you can define your custom fields for each specific, how do I want to word this? For each specific mode. So if you want to see custom fields just on your items, you can pretty much define a specific custom field in items mode, listings mode, sales, and then so on and so forth. If you just want to see it part of the order, you can define it on the order. And the way it works is this product line custom field here in items, I have it in listings and I have it in orders. So all the way down the line, once I list an item, on the item record you'll see it, and then on the listing in 6-bit you'll see it, and then from there in ship orders. I can show you an example of that. But we can start out and create a new one. Say I want to have it in items mode and give it a tag such as, I'll just make it I'll just use fragrances. Create it there. You can also set the field type. So basically this allows you to set what the data is, like the data type. So if you want it to just be a text field, you can make it a text field. If you want to make it multi-value, you can make it multi-value, numeric, a yes or no, or a date. So I think for my item class, I made it, yep, text multi-value. So for my items, when I have the product line is grade before shave, my item class, if it's oil, I would just check oil on it and set the custom field that way. So that you can just give it some data. Well, actually, I want to give it the same name, so I'll just do test 2, test 3. And then if you want that fragrances custom field on your listings, you would just recreate it, say new, choose listings, and then type in, if I can type, fragrances here, and then it would show up in listings, and then you would just give it your user defined values again down the line. And you can also sort these, and you can paste values in from the clipboard. So if you're trying to bring in values that you have in Notepad or in some other program, and you're able to copy those, you can paste them right into the user defined values from here. And you can also move them up and down. And let's see what else. Pretty much it. Custom fields. Once you define it, once you define your custom field going forward on items, when you start creating more items, or you can edit an item and define that custom field on it, you'll see it show up under the custom fields tab, fragrances, and then you can assign that value into the custom field itself. And then from that point, once you submit it, it'll go to your listings. I think I have some examples of ones I have running that have custom fields carried over. Let's just open this one. Pomade. Yeah, so I defined on the listing the product line grade before shave. That's just one of the custom fields I have, but you can see it carries over. Oh yeah, the item class as well from the item carries over. So if you check pomade on the item, you'll see that all the way down the line. You'll see from the item to the listing to the order, sale, shipment, so on. Wherever you define it, you'll see it in 6-bit. Not sure. All right, let's go back to the questions here. Alright, looks like JC covered the Samaria one. Cross list. Martin, when listing items, once in a while I forget the item count, and then when it doesn't load, I cannot add the quantity. How is it done? When listing items, once in a while I forget the item count. Okay, I think I know what you mean. If you're still there, Martin, are you referring to if you like take a group of items, list it, submit it to submit them to eBay or whatever site, and then once they're in the running listings, you can't find them from here, or you can't find them when you go back. I can just sort of go based off of that. But if I wanted to take these and submit them to eBay, and then I wanted to go back and let's just say they're not in order. Once you highlight your items, like let's just say it's these, you can right click and say go to selected items. You can submit them from here, from this view. It's basically going to take those items and put them in its own view. Items for item IDs, and then it's the item IDs for the items we just selected in its own view. And if you submit from here, after you select them, they will show up, and once they show up and running, and they're actually running, they'll be in here. And once you go back to sell items mode, they'll be in that view still. So that should be, excuse me. Sorry if I didn't answer that like 100%, but I think that's what you were talking about there, Martin. Sally said, nope, no way, Steve. Not sure what she meant by that. We list auto parts on eBay and often use pre-filled info. A lot of times we want to use the photos. I'm just going to open up the chat in case anyone wants to throw anything in that isn't in the Q&A. They can use the chat pod here. Okay. Am I? Dan asked if I was a wizard, or if we were wizards. Okay, is there a way to? Dan's asking, is there a way to search by date? As it is now, it doesn't work. Dan, if you could pop over into the chat and just tell me what date you're talking about, we could probably do an advanced search, or I could try to answer that. I mean, you could search based on a lot of different dates. May. Are you talking in check listings? You want to be able to group your listings by when you submitted them, or in items? So there's certain dates in items that aren't. I mean, there's only so many dates you can use from items mode. If we look at the list of available fields, I know created date is one. Last listed date is another. Excuse me. If we scroll over here to last listed, I just added it to the grid. Right here, last list full. It's just going to basically, anytime, like there's no last list date for this group of listings because I haven't submitted them, but once I submit them to eBay and they go up and they're running, that date is going to get set here. I mean, you can use this one. Created full? Sure. So there's a couple ways you can do it. You can hit this drop down and you can search by a specific date and just click the dates that you want to show information for. You could do that. You can't group by date. I think we were running into some problems trying to group by the actual date, but you can do an advanced search if you're looking for a specific day. You can use created search for the advanced search. You can use the created date and then say, is before. There's a lot of different conditions you can do off a date here to get your items. But yeah, as far as like sorting or doing anything in the sell items mode by created date, you would just have to use that created full or date range column. And I mean, you can filter, you can ascend, put them into order that way, but there's really no way to group on that. You can group on the date range, created range. So if you submit them within the last hour, or a couple of days ago, you'll see in the last few days or whatever. You can use that, but that's pretty much the extent of it. Oh, try typing in a date. Okay, let's try to get the 3/22/2018. 3/22/2018. Good point. I don't know. That should work. As far as I know, it should be searching. Maybe 03/22? No. Oh. Do I have to put it in quotes? Not sure. I'll notate that and I'll look at the I'll look into it and see what is actually what you're able to use values in here for the filter on the created full. Yep, no problem, Dan. Andrea said no specific questions on the item description wrapper, just a general overview would be helpful. Sure. So the description wrapper, if you aren't aware, is pretty much, I mean, I've seen a lot of different things in the wrapper, but for the most part, it's just a way to define information on groups of listings, information that applies to groups of listings. So I've seen a lot of people that define, shipping information or payment information in that description wrapper. So it basically wraps around your actual description, hence description wrapper. And a lot of sellers that I've seen just use it for that kind of thing, for any kind of special payment details or shipping details. I have one set up here, I believe, that I use for, let's see what I have defined. So the description wrapper tab, it has its own tab. You can edit or you can manage the description wrappers and create new ones and edit from here as well. I'm just going to open this up. If you click the pencil, it's going to open up in the editor. So yeah, I just basically on mine, I give it a title, a subtitle, and then my description is included. So really the only thing that my wrapper is holding is my title and subtitle. So if I preview, it's boom, title, subtitle, and then everything in the description here. But yeah, it's really convenient in the fact that if you have any kind of update, say you offer 30-day shipping or 14-day shipping, and with eBay's new change, 30-day or not shipping but returns, eBay's new update, 30-day returns, I'm pretty sure is going to be enforced for everything. So if you have any kind of details in your description wrapper about returns, it's one simple change. If you have 2,000, 20,000 running listings using that wrapper, it's as simple as opening up the wrapper on one of the listings, making your change in the edit window in the actual wrapper, and then hitting OK. And it's going to ask you if you want to apply that to every listing running using that wrapper, it'll revise all the listings in the background for you. So it's convenient for making those types of changes to listings in 6-bit in bulk. How do you change the wrapper for more than one listing at a time? Are these different wrappers, or are the same wrapper? Like the same description wrapper, or are they different on all the listings? Because you can essentially, if we go to check listings, I mean, you can do a batch change and set the wrapper on your listings. Okay, do a batch change. All right. So you can do a batch change and check listings or sell items. So I'll just do it from here. So if I take this group, you can get to the batch change two different ways. You can click the drop down under revise, hit batch change, or if you're selecting more than one listing and hit revise, it's going to bring up the batch change window. And then from here, we have a bunch of options. We would find our description wrapper. You can change it to basic, and then this checkbox apply changes to all future listings. It's going to actually update the description wrapper that you're setting on the listing on the item record as well. So it'll apply the change back to the item from the listing. This doesn't really need to be checked unless you want to resend the pictures to eBay, and then you can actually save that as a batch change definition. And next time you go in, instead of filling this out again, if you had a couple other conditions in here, you could actually save it as a batch change definition. And then once you select it, once you go in here and select it, it'll apply or populate all the fields that you initially selected. And then once you click OK, I don't think there's a problem with me doing this. It's going to update. Oh, yeah, these listings aren't refreshed. This is an older. I could probably just do a refresh real quick. But essentially what it does is going to go through each listing, update the wrapper, and then revise the listing so that change is applied on the listing right away. Let me do a refresh here. You have 3 different wrappers. So yeah, if you're doing a batch change, you're only going to be able to set one wrapper for those listings at a time. You could get away with doing a batch edit from items, sell items mode, and highlight your items, do a batch edit, and set the wrapper. It basically loads the items into a grid-like view that you can edit. Once this refresh is done, I can show you what the batch edit window is. But that's really the only way to change your description wrapper in bulk without having to apply the description wrapper, the one description wrapper to a bunch of listings. All right. Looks like most of the questions are answered here. Pete. This over. Alright, let me go back to... Alright, so this refresh is done. Let me just show you that batch edit window real quick, Laura, so you know what I'm talking about. So a batch change would apply to all the items that you select or the listings that you select. A batch edit can apply to each one individually in the same type of view. So essentially, you would, if you want to edit every item or just a few, you would select them, click drop down under edit, and then batch edit items. It's going to load into its own window here once it decides. There we go. So this is the batch edit items window. From here, you can set the wrapper. So there's a field here, description wrapper. You can actually see your description. If you know what items you're editing or that you need to update the wrapper on, like the first 5 here, if I wanted to edit the first 5 and then 8, you can highlight them, select the wrapper, and then it's going to apply to those items that I just highlighted. It's sort of hard to see here. It shouldn't take too long. Let me actually change my theme, because this is, I'll go back to the classic. Yeah, no problem, Laura. So here, let's select these again. Should be a little easier to see. Batch edit items. It's going to load into the batch edit item window. And then, yeah, this is a little easier on the eyes. So you can select certain items. Like if you wanted to do item 1, 3, and 4, you would select them, hit the description wrapper drop down that you want, and then basic, and it's going to change those 3 for you. So it's just a way to go through on each different item and set set the wrapper that way. Just a little different than batch change. And then once you click OK, those changes will apply to the items, and the wrapper will get set. All right, any other questions? Let's scroll through here and see what else. Doesn't look like there's any other questions coming in. I just wanted to sort of get some feedback. Was the webinar, was it hard to join? Was there a link that you guys could get to in your email? Just because I had a lot of people coming through saying that there was no link. I didn't know if you guys had a hard time joining, or if there's something I could do for the next webinar to make it a little easier for users to join. Yeah, you can just type it in the chat, or you can send us an email at support and let us know what we can change for the next one coming up, and we'll make sure it's easier for you if it was too hard to join.